Welcome to Down to Earth Astrology and Primal Girl Wellness. This is Miss Jenny, and I am your astrologer. The video that we're presenting here is an examination, hopefully the final examination on my end, of Donald J. Trump and the timeline of his life from just prior to his election into presidency up to the current indictment that just came down, and looking forward for personal horoscope year ahead predictions for him moving into the 2023-2024 cycle. So some things that we're covering in this video, just so you know, the first thing is we are using a rectified time, not the 29 Leo rising that everyone likes to think he has. And we're using all of the life events and chart timings, solar returns, solar arcs, progressions. We're using all these secondary charts to prove or quantify, to establish the accuracy of the rectified time that we're using. And there's explanations about how we came to this and how you can set this up with the 29 Leo rising to see that the 29 Leo rising does not work in this chart. So for those of you who are curious about how personal predictions are actually done by an astrologer using these spooky charts, this will be an entertaining and very light overview. If you're actually trying to learn how to do solar arc directions and progressions and solar returns, we don't have enough time to do the ins and outs and how-tos in the video and the chart work that we did. So for those of you who are familiar with those terms and those charts, this should be useful to you. For those of you who study enough astrology to be dangerous and you're wondering how to rectify a chart, this will give you at least some guidelines to look at when you're trying to determine an actual time of birth, other than, Leo rising, the hair. Oh my gosh. So I hope you enjoy it. Please, by all means, if you enjoy the video, hit the like button below and give me some feedback. Feel free to put comments and questions, in the comments section below. If you know somebody who might enjoy this video, by all means, pass it along and share it with them. And if you'd like to get notifications of future videos not about Trump, hit the subscribe button. All right, I'll talk to you later. Bye. Alrighty, so this is the natal chart with the solar return or solar arc direction for Donald Trump on here. So let's take a look at what we have. So the first thing, just as a reminder, the rectified ascendant for Donald Trump is 1 degree 24 minutes. One degree 24 minutes Virgo rising on this chart. Now, the thing about it is there's a maxim in astrology that if you take the degree of the ascendant at that year of life, something significant should have occurred in the person's lifetime, right? So with 29 Leo rising, we would look for something that would have occurred that was significant, really significant, life-changing in the 29th year of life. But of course, we can't find any indication that anything happened. And the problem with the 1 degree 24 minute ascendant is that he was a year and a half old. He was a toddler. So had something significant or meaningful happened at this time, there's no way for us to know because only the parents or the immediate family might know. And they're both dead. And he is such a poor historian to begin with. Even if he could remember most of his early years, we may not necessarily get accurate information. But there is the suggestion that something significant should have happened around a year and a half old. Now, this can be anything from moving like very long distances to having parents leave or die or something like that. Like literally big life trajectory changing things happen on that critical degree for year of life on the ascendant. So check your own chart. Like look in your chart and ask yourself, like, what degree, if you know your degree, right? If you know your actual accurate degree, look at what happened that year of your life, right? Just saying. Now, the other reason that we're doing this at 125 is that when we do things like solar arc directions, which is what the chart we're looking at right here, when you do things like solar arc directions or you do solar returns, any type of predictive work, one, we need an accurate time of birth. And the reason is because that accurate time of birth is what we base mathematical calculations on. If the time of birth is off, even by a few minutes, it's going to change the timing and the positions of things in these charts because it's all math calculations. Now, I am not a big math nerd. Maybe you are. But even I know that when it comes to math, like 2 plus 2 will never equal 5. It's always going to equal 4. And if you come up with a different number, there's something wrong with the equation or the information that you've put into the formula or the equation. So when you set up these charts and you're trying to rectify a time of birth, you have to look at major life events because major life events should show up when the angles, the ascendant and the midheaven, or the moon even, but specifically ascendant and midheaven, because these are mathematically calculated points. These must occur and have some connection to major planetary movement in the chart you're looking at. So to give you an example, right, with this rectified chart, and if you go back and set it up as 29 Leo rising, like a whole bunch of people got duped into believing his ascendant was, you won't get these things because with 1 degree 25 minutes rising, Virgo rising, what we get for the solar arc on March 30th, 2023, when these the first of many indictments got handed down, and this is a life-changing event for him. The solar arc midheaven, remember that's a math calculation right here. This midheaven had moved to conjunction with his natal Pluto. The solar arc ascendant, right, again, a mathematical calculation, had moved to a conjunction with his Uranus. So you can see it right here, right? Do you see that? The solar arc ascendant had moved to Uranus, or Uranus had moved to the solar arc ascendant, I'm sorry. The midheaven had moved to his natal Pluto. These are huge, huge things. And the reason is Pluto represents huge, devastating changes that you cannot negotiate, bargain, talk your way out of. Like what happens, happens. If you've ever been through major Pluto transits in your life, then one of the things that you know is that when these things occur, that you literally, it's all circumstance, and you have no control over any of it, right? Really good example, right? Death of a primary relationship in your life, right? In my case, it was my father died, and the Pluto transit showed up in everybody's solar return and solar arcs, like all over the charts for everybody on the angles, because my father's passing was a tremendously significant event that caused a lot of circumstantial issues around it. So deeply personal, meaningful, and we had no control of the situation whatsoever. With Trump, the solar arc midheaven moving to that Pluto and in the 12th house indicates that his public standing or his public reputation, right, his social standing, who he is in the world, was about to come to major loggerheads with deeply private karmic situations and circumstances. Also, Pluto rules the underworld and criminal activity. So, and also abuse and molestation and all the icky, gross, dark things we really don't want to have as a normal part of a healthy society. That's Pluto, and especially locked here in the 12th house where nobody can see it. So that midheaven, that public point coming to his Pluto, is exposing all of that rot in the cavity. And what happened on this day that the midheaven hit Pluto? He was indicted. That's the day the first indictment came down. So that's why I'm saying that's significant. Now here, the solar arc, I'm sorry, I had this backwards. It's the solar arc Uranus that came to his ascendant. Now, with Uranus we know is the truth bringer, and it's the shock, right? The lightning strike. Uranus upsets and challenges the status quo. So we know when Uranus came down to hit that ascendant, his life, as he knew it, was going to change radically. You can't avoid that when Uranus comes around. Sometimes Uranus, because Uranus does rule accidents, which is certainly an unforeseen calamity, Uranus. We can see people who have major devastating car accidents, or house fires, things of that nature, electrocutions. In his particular case, disrupting the status quo of his life apparently had a lot to do with him being held accountable for his criminal behavior that's been accumulating behind the scenes for apparently a very long time. So right here, just looking at these angles, ascendant, midheaven, Pluto, Uranus coming into exact connection, right, indicates that this day and time, March 30th, 2022, would be a very significant day and year in his life. And I'm just saying, in his case, this indictment, setting off the whole domino cascade of indictments, is definitely life-changing for him. Now, some other things that I want you guys to look at while we're looking at the solar arc, and again, this is why time is important and why I'm saying he is 1 degree 25 minutes Virgo rising. So the other thing here, right, so he carries, remember, he carries a Sun-Uranus conjunction opposing the moon in Sagittarius. And the thing that's important about his full moon chart is that he was born under an eclipse. So there's a lot of strange things that happens when you're born under an eclipse, and it's, we can get all sorts of weird, metaphysical mumbo jumbo about that, but I won't. But so the eclipses are not great times to be born under, because there's a very, very special destiny involved with this, and sometimes you have to play a part that's not very well received if you make it through life at all. Now, so we know with that Sun-Uranus opposing moon, full moon eclipse chart, right, that there's some stuff going on here. Well, here's the thing. The other thing I want to point out in this chart, right, if you look at solar arc Mercury, you know what that solar arc Mercury is also doing simultaneously on this date? While this is going on, this solar arc Mercury, and remember, with Virgo rising, Mercury is now his chart ruler, so this becomes doubly emphasized here. Okay, this Mercury moves into a T-square with that full moon eclipse. Right here, Mercury will have moved to 22 Virgo by solar arc direction, making an exact opposition, or T-square, I'm sorry, it's the leg, making an exact leg to the T-square of that Sun, Moon, full moon eclipse opposition, right? So Uranus is back here at 17. We're not worried about that so much. And remember also, too, the Sun and the Moon are personal planets. This is the big triad in your chart, the big three. Here you go, bunny ears. The big three. It is the Sun, it is the Moon, and it's not the ascendant, it's the chart ruler. Okay? If he were, in fact, Leo rising, what we would have looked for is solar arc Sun to have moved in to do something significant. But in fact, what we do have is solar arc Mercury, the chart ruler, setting up now a powerful dynamic T-square, literally like a trigger on a gun, like popping off what's to come with this particular solar arc on this day. So again, when you're looking at ascendants, it's not the physical appearance, right? It's not the hair, the ego. It's literally the timing, because these are all mathematical calculations. If the time is off, if the ascendant or time of birth is off, it throws off the formula or the calculation, because like math, you've inputted the wrong information, and what you'll get is the wrong answer. In this case, what will happen if we put in any other time, these points, these mathematically calculated points, are not going to line up as exactly as they do right now, specifically on that day. So that's how you check your homework. And by the way, just so we're clear, right, when we talk about Leo rising and having this striking mane of hair, I want to point something out to you. So I'm sure you're familiar with these celebrities, but if you're not, you might want to look them up. Lucille Ball was a comedian in the 60s and 70s. Amy Winehouse is a musician from the 90s or the aughts. Yul Brynner is an actor from, the 50s and 60s. And Dolly Parton, who is still alive, bless her heart. We all know who Dolly Parton is, right? All of these people are well known for their trademark hair. Lucille Ball had flaming red hair. She was known for her red hair. Amy Winehouse is almost known for her hair as she's her music because of her old-fashioned beehive bouffant retro hairstyles. Lucille Ball, Amy Winehouse. Yul Brynner is known for his lack of hair. He was the first bald actor ever. He's probably one of the first bald celebrities that we ever actually had that was, popularized being bald. And who was the other one? Oh, Dolly Parton, who is notably famous for, when you think of Dolly Parton, you think of three things. You think of her music, you think of her implants, and you think of that giant freaking bouffant wig, whichever one she happens to be wearing that day. So she's also just as famous for her hair as everything else. None of these people have Leo rising. Now, the other thing is the ego, the ego. Well, here's the thing, darling. I want you to remember this also. The ego is a poor prognosticator of what an ascendant is, because the fact of the matter is, look at what this man was doing. He was running for the office of President of the United States. Every single politician who runs for that office has an ego larger than life. Literally huge, the size of Texas and bigger, maybe even the constellation. They all have huge egos, and they have to have a huge ego to deal with the onslaught of criticism and detraction that they're going to get as they compete for that position. If you want to see ego, I want you to look up a man named Ross Perot. Oh my God. And he is from Texas, as a matter of fact. I'll put his name and a link down in the description box below. So this is the solar arc direction specific to March 30th, 2023, with a rectified ascendant of 1 degree, 25 minutes, Virgo rising. This gives us exact hits, ascendant, midheaven, chart ruler Mercury, exact hits in critical ways on his chart. You will not get this in any other time of birth. So, and if you don't believe me, try it. Go ahead and try it, right? Math doesn't lie. I hate math because it doesn't lie, ever. And sometimes a girl just wants a soft lie. No, please tell me I'm the most beautiful thing you've ever seen at 4 o'clock in the morning. Tell me I look lovely with that. I'm just saying. Anyway, so other things that are of note, I thought this was interesting. If we go with this, with a 1 degree 25 Virgo rising, this changes the midheaven ever so slightly. The midheaven now becomes 26 Taurus. Okay. Well, my lovies, do you know what fixed star is here at 26 Taurus? Ooh, you ready for this? It is the fixed star Algol. Now, Algol has a horrible reputation, and that's not why I'm putting this here. Because the whole thing with Algol is it's believed to rule beheadings or metaphorical losing one's head. But some of the lesser known things that come up with a prominent Algol, and this is not true for everybody, but it does show up once in a while, and it's odd enough that it's memorable, right? And remember, you got to take the whole chart into account. Algol also rules, you ready for this? Cuckolding. So when we talk about this one and his third wife Melania having the live-in boyfriend / support husband in another apartment in the same building, right? That's definitely cuckolding, and I bet you good money it really happened. Also too, remember, he was really big on cuckolding other people. Right, so the story is he would apparently get other men's wives, competitors, peers, associates, into his office and give them this big story about how her husband is cheating on him and this, that, and the other thing, and yada yada yada. And then to prove his point, because he wouldn't say it if it weren't true, he would get the man on the phone, put him on conference call, so the woman could hear him with she had to be very, very quiet, and then get into this casual conversation, and then bring up something where the man would basically confess or admit to, oh yeah, that time last week with that co-ed cutie, blah blah, yeah, haha, Susan never knew, ha ha ha, this kind of thing. And of course, by the time he hung up the phone, the woman was furious, like literally ready for a divorce. And as these things go with that class of society and some other folks, the first act of revenge, of course, is, two can play that game. And then she would, of course, sleep with him and then go home and divorce the husband, or, make hell for the husband. Anyway, all of these things are Algol cuckolding things. There's also a very famous artist. I'm not going to say who it is, but apparently cuckolding was a very prominent theme in his relationship as well. And he also had the fixed star Algol prominent in his chart. Now, just so you know, this is not a rule. This is definitely an exception, but it's notable because it's odd. You can have people who are involved in these types of relationships that don't have do not have Algol prominent in their chart. So don't take this at face value and assume that anybody with Algol prominent is in a cuckolding relationship. But definitely consider if Algol is prominent on an angle, all the things that come with Algol are definitely within the realm of possibility, which includes feminism, female power, female empowerment. Algol is the star of feminism and women's empowerment. You know, the powerful she warrior. That's Algol. All right, let's take a look at what else we got here. Okay, so this is the chart for the solar return based on the 1 degree 25-minute Virgo rising chart that I'm giving you. So the thing with solar returns, oh, by the way, so this solar return, which is your personal horoscope for the year, runs from birthday to birthday. So this solar return for him we set up for his birthday on June 13, 2022, when the sun is returned to the exact degree and minute placement of his birth, to June 13th, 2022, give or take a day, right, when sun returns back to this exact degree and minute in 2023. So this covers this period all the way up until his birthday coming up this June. Now, the thing with solar returns, it's very important to understand, is that solar returns are so sensitive to input error because it's all math at this point. Literally, it's all math. That even a couple of seconds off here or there will throw off the angles and houses of the chart. And here's why I'm saying that. So with this 1 degree, 25 minutes, give or take a few seconds here or there, this is as close as I'm going to get it without, you know, pulling my hair out and going crazy. What this does is it gives us an ascendant of 24 degrees, 25 minutes Virgo. Now, what we'd like is for that, because that's over here, right? So what we would like is for that 24, 25 to be a little bit closer to the sun moon degrees, 22 and 21. If we adjust this chart a couple of seconds backward or forward, or even change the longitude and the latitude of where we set the solar return up, in this case we're setting it up for Palm Beach, because I'm assuming that that's where he was at this year, and this was his primary residence. It's going to throw this off. So this is as close as I'm going to get it, and I'm okay with that. Now, the reason this is important is because if you look, right, Midheaven, the Midheaven at 24 Virgo, for his solar return, sets up a T-square to his full moon eclipse in his natal or his birth chart. Now, what that means is that this is going to be a big climactic year. I mean, talk about things coming to a head. You've got literally your two lights, your personal planets, the sun and the moon. And again, that dynamic T-square, and the leg of the T-square is the trigger on the gun, the trigger that pulls the gun and like lets things loose and totally changes everything. Public image, social status, reputation, who we are in society, that Midheaven comes in and sets up the trigger for this T-square involving literally his whole identity. Wow, how is that? And this occurs, if we could move this down closer, it would be exact immediately after his birthday in 2022. But, you know, it's still close, right? So give or take a month or two. But again, seconds count. So we could actually, if we adjusted it just a couple seconds, I'm not going to do it, but if we adjust a couple seconds, we could probably get it in there. So consider this exact, even though it's off by like 2 degrees. Now, let's look at his biography. Well, what happened in June or July, right, or June to July of 2022 that would make this make sense? What could have possibly impacted his social standing, you know, and reputation and who he is in society at the time that we know the solar return Midheaven would have activated? Well, Chuchi Pie, look at this. In June, July of 2022, that birthday month and the following month, the January 6th hearings were going on, and this is the time that Cassidy Hutchins testified and literally blew everything up. She testified on June 28th, not 2 weeks after his birthday. So right there, the January 6th hearing, and specifically the Cassidy Hutchins testimony that occurred on June 28th, is what set off this T-square, which absolutely impacted his standing in society, his reputation, his identity, his sun moon, his whole identity. Okay, wow. Are you with me? So, I'm not going to get into a big long thing about how to interpret a solar return. It's a lot of work. But we're going to go over the highlights. So, the other thing we want to look at, right, is here in August. Remember, his chart ruler is Mercury. Okay? His chart ruler is Mercury because we have his Virgo rising. In August, Mercury squared his ascendant. So, here is Mercury, right, in a solar return. The Mercury is at 0 Gemini, okay? In August of 2022, Mercury moved down and squared his 1 degree, 25-minute Virgo ascendant. So the Mercury is squaring its ascendant, and what happened? So again, let's go back and look at his life. What happened then? He had the Saudi golf event. He hosted a golf event for the Saudi Arabians on his Bedminster, his New Jersey golf course. And of course, this is a big thing because the Saudis had not months before murdered and dismembered and got away with, killing a journalist. Literally killed the poor guy in the embassy and chopped his body up in little pieces in the bathtub, drained it, and carried him out in duffel bags. Ooh. And then, of course, this horse is behind goes and has a golf, a tournament, a golf tournament, hosts a golf tournament for them here in the United States at his Bedminster golf course. And, listen, one of the things that we know is that Donald Trump does not do anything unless it benefits Donald Trump exclusively and primarily, right? Get this to work. Oh, it's not going to work. Okay. So, there's that to consider. So again, everything runs on time. That's how you know you've got the right time of birth. Everything that's a mathematical calculation derived from the time of birth runs on time. And you want more than one confirmation, right? So it's not that we see it in a solar arc chart. It's not that we see it in a solar return. We have to see it across multiple charts to confirm that we're where we want to be, right? Nothing happens in a vacuum. So if we look at the solar return, because remember, this takes us into his birthday this summer in June 2023. Well, what else can we possibly expect? Just literally off the top, just off the top. So here's something very notable, right? In March of 2023, and remember, March of 2023 is when that first indictment came down, right? Life-changing. Well, Uranus, his solar return Uranus, would have moved into position to conjunct that Midheaven. And remember, when we talked about this before, it was Uranus on the ascendant, right? Solar arc Uranus coming to the ascendant, really shaking things up and challenging his identity, right? Like things coming out of left field that totally disrupt the status quo, okay? And we're getting double confirmation here because Uranus is moving to the Midheaven, okay, at that same time. So we've got a strong Uranian influence happening in March, and that's exactly what happened. I don't think anybody was as shocked as he was that the indictments actually went through. All right, so moving forward from that, in March also, right, the Midheaven, his solar return Midheaven, would have moved down to 3 Libra. And that means it would have been here approaching his natal Neptune. Now this will get down there, give it a couple more months. So March, April, May, June. So I'm looking at May, well, but June takes us into the next birthday. Hold that thought, March, April, May, 3, 4, 5. Right. So I'm thinking like May or June. This Midheaven is going to be on that Neptune. Now, when the Midheaven gets Neptune, one of the things we might expect at that point is for things to really muddy the water. If we look at what Neptune rules, which is his personal 8th house, right? This is the house of tax, insurance, debts, right? That people owe us and we owe other people, shared finances, shared resources, support from other people. So I would expect come May or June for this whole 8th house to light up like a pinball machine, and we're going to get all kinds of exposure because the Midheaven is a public degree. It's a public angle. So you've got this public angle moving to Neptune ruling that 8th house, which is typically a hidden house, but not now. Not when Midheaven gets there in May, June. So anything about his sources of support, financial support from other people, as well as loans and debts, will absolutely come to the forefront and out on the table for everybody to see at that time. This is what I think is going to happen with this particular combination. Other things in December of 2022, I don't have any notes here. You'll have to look it up for me. In December of 2022, the descendant came to his natal Saturn. So something very sobering and very unhappy should have occurred in December of 2022. I do not have notes here. I'm so sorry. But we can easily look it up. And again, these things should be significant milestones in the life. If the angles are hitting it, these are significant. So it's not like you're celebrating your 16th birthday at Disneyland. This is, this is like celebrating your 16th birthday at Disneyland and there's a tsunami that washes away the park. That kind of significant. These are life-changing or trajectory-changing events. And then from there, oh, right, that was the other thing. So down here on March 30th, remember the indictment came down on March 30th, 2023. Well, do we have anything in the solar return showing anything significant happening on March 30th, 2023? Yes, indeedy. The solar return ascendant is at 14 degrees, 59 minutes Sagittarius. Well, on March 30th, that solar return ascendant moves down to, opposes the sun, because the solar return ascendant moves down here. It opposes the sun. It's going to square Neptune. And it's, involving the moon. And the moon is there as well. So right here on March 30th, we've got some big stuff going. But specifically, again, involving identity, right? Now, what's notable also, too, is with the solar return, yes, the moon, solar return moon, is on the ascendant. When you have the moon on your solar return ascendant, it typically means that that's a year of many, many changes and lots of instability and lots of coming and going, and there's no secure place to put yourself. You literally have to kind of go with the flow because everything is moving fast around you. And that describes, or should be describing, his personal year. And remember, we don't live with him, so there's a lot we are not privy to. We don't know, because we only get what's public and visible to the news feeds. This should have been the year from his birthday in 2022 to the birthday coming up in 2023. So far, between the solar arc, okay, and the solar return, everything's running on time with a 1 degree, 25-minute Virgo rising. So that's the end of that nonsense with Leo rising. And the hair, the ego, the temper, the hair. Oh, Lord, today. Okay, so now the last chart we're doing to justify and double check to make sure we've got the right rectified time of birth is what's called a progressed chart. Okay, and this progression we've taken up to December 3rd, 2022, because it would seem to be very important. Now, the progressed chart, one of the things that we're looking at with a progressed chart is basically a day. What is it, a day for a year? No. I'm sorry, more math. Anyway, I get the computer to do it for me. That's all I need to know. In the progressed chart, the ascendant on December 3rd, 2022 moves to 0 degrees. Now, when you do progressed charts, there's only a couple of things you're primarily looking at that indicate like significant things are happening at that moment in a person's life. Angles moving to 0 degrees, in this case, the ascendant, progressed ascendant would have moved to 0 degrees, would have indicated that this time, December 3rd, something major happened. Life changed, literally turned on a dime at this point. And we're not going to get into all of the other stuff. The progression is pretty straightforward. I will say that, what do we got here? So the moon is at 15 Libra. Right, the only other thing I would say is the progressed moon on December 3rd, right, progressed moon moves down to 15 Libra. 15 Libra is going to put that moon right here with Jupiter. So whatever this is, this would have unlocked a lot of Jupiterian things. And I don't remember what my notes are. We're going to look at it in a second. So Jupiter in his chart rules an intercepted fourth. So that progressed moon moving to the ruler of the intercepted fourth suggests that a lot of things that have to do with home, hearth, and roots, legacy, right, are involved, are coming to big focus because the ascendant changes signs at the same time at this time. Jupiter also is the co-ruler of the seventh house because it's the ancient ruler of Pisces. So also, again, partnerships, business partnerships, legal arrangements, people that you share or have a legal obligation to, which includes spouses, come under the auspices of the seventh house. So here, home, hearth, legacy, right, roots, foundations, and real estate, the homes, and the seventh house, partnerships, legal obligations that we have to and with other people. All of these things were coming up very, very active at this time, December 3rd, 2022, as the ascendant changed signs and went into zero Scorpio. Now, with a progress and the zeros, I would probably even maybe do a little bit later. So maybe even a little later than December 3rd, because sometimes you got to give a sign or a planet a chance to actually get into the sign. So 0 degrees is kind of a funny, weird place. So sometimes you have to wait for it to get to 0 degrees, close to 1 degree, for it to actually see something. So always, when you're doing it for yourself, give yourself a little bit of fudge room in terms of timing when 0 degrees shows up. Well, what happened December 3rd, 2022, when that ascendant changed to 0? Let's take a look. Oh, look at this. And remember, seconds of time, not minutes, but seconds, can change everything. So you do all math calculations. So here we go. December 7th, which is 4 days after December 3rd, we can take that, right? Because again, we might be off by a few seconds. First thing, the Trump organization was found guilty on all counts of criminal tax fraud. And there you go. Right there, we're looking at home, hearth, legacy, like we were saying, and also legal obligations and business partnerships, right? And I think that's about the time that his accountant or whoever that guy is, that got pulled, that relationship came to an end as well. His personally hand-picked candidate, Herschel Walker from Georgia. You guys remember this character? Oh my Lord. Jesus Christ. Even black people were embarrassed by this guy. Trump personally handpicked him to try and swing the Georgia election because he needed Georgia in his pocket for all the stuff moving forward. That's one of the last states he had to get any kind of protection from, because those racist white Georgians, they're all about Trump and having it their way. Well, Herschel Walker, the walking dumbbell, lost to Reverend Raphael Warnock in Georgia, December 7th, 2022, as a particularly saturnine time as well. Also, man, the news just flies around these times. So January 6th committee also at the same time was considering criminal referrals and making their final list of criminal referrals about the insurrection and Trump's involvement in it. And this genius, this stable genius, he also, on December 7, 2022, called for the termination of the Constitution. The thing that got him in the office in the first place. And when he did that, he also lost the support of top GOP members. Remember that seventh house? And our business relationships, right? So Jupiter, that moon came down Jupiter, so there was a whole lot of changes happening with his Jupiterian things, his financial supports that came under scrutiny, home, hearth, domestic relations, legacy, and real estate that came up. And all of this happened, really, bang, came into existence as soon as the ascendant changed signs. So that's what also, all of these things, blah, 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 right? So we're looking at a progress chart giving us exact timings to the day, give or take a day, because this, we might be off by a few seconds. The solar return also running right on time like a Swiss watch, and our solar arc directions also running like a German train right on time. So the thing about it is, when you're doing rectifications, the timing, Marsha, the timing tells the tale. If your timing in these predictive charts is not showing up accurately. All right, you can have like a day or two off, because if you're off a few seconds, it'll change it by a day or two. But you cannot have it completely missing from the charts. You cannot have major life events that are not showing up in the charts. And conversely, you cannot have major events in the chart not showing up as significant life events at the same time. So that, my friends, is why we have 1.25 Virgo rising as his actual ascendant. Okay, so we're going to do this one really quick. I don't want to get too much into it. So again, progressions using big, broad brush strokes. There's only so much information you can get from some of these charts, and that's okay. They still give us plenty of information, more than we had before. In November 9, 2013, this is a particularly important day and year in his life. And the reason is his progressed ascendant and his progressed Jupiter came into not only an exact conjunction, but it came into exact conjunction on the fixed star Spica and Arcturus. Both of these stars are associated with wealth, and they're very, very lucky stars. So with that said, we would expect something to have occurred November 9, 2013. That was a phenomenal, like literally like a great big bag of money and get out of jail free cards dropping in your lap when you need them the most, as it were. So something of tremendous beneficence, protection, bounty, all the good stuff you like with Jupiter words, you know, and also the fixed stars, Spica and Arcturus, should have occurred on this day. So if we go back with what information we do have and we look at his chart or his lifeline and we say, well, what happened? Did anything happen? You know, on November 9, 2013, well, you know what happened? That was when they had the Miss Universe pageant in Moscow, Russia. Moscow, Russia. Now, this is important because, one, it hadn't been done before, and two, he wasn't getting into Russia without an invitation. There's no way he could have convinced Russia, because if you don't know, let me tell you, Russia is incredibly xenophobic. They don't like foreigners. They're literally Americans, the worst kinds of Americans with Russian accents. They don't like foreigners, and they're perfectly happy to take advantage of foreigners, just like some of the less good-natured Americans here are. So for the foreigner to come into Russia to set up a pageant like this, and this is also the time he was talking to Russia about building Trump Towers in Moscow, Russia, this can only have happened with the express permission and invitation from the Russian government, specifically Putin. So he would have had to have been given literally a direct invitation and permission from Putin to come in and even discuss this, much less set it off. So this pageant, for whatever reason, was literally like a big bag of money and get out of jail free cards landing in his lap. Now, it is entirely possible because Putin, like anybody else that's that high up on the food chain, is probably not going to deal with this sort of stuff. And Russia, we are becoming a lot like Russia currently is, in that Russia has like a pocket full of billionaires floating around the country. Everybody else is still living in poverty. They literally have unpaved walkways instead of proper sidewalks. There's a whole lot. Oh, child, Russia is not what you think it is. So you have lots and lots of socialist poverty or communist poverty, because, you know, communism, everybody has to be at the same level, where people are living in what looks like tenement housing. These are the communist block apartments. And then every now and then you see these mansions that appear in the middle of all of this, where the billionaires, you know, have built their fancy mansions, right? So for every 100,000 Russians you have, they're living at subsistence levels and, you know, very basic conditions and not living the life at all, my friends. You've got that one ostentatious billionaire who's literally like, you know, living on the yacht, has a giant mansion, private planes, blah, 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 blah. So one for every 100,000, and that's exactly what our politicians here are trying to move towards. And that's why some of those damn Republicans are so like, ooh, Russia, because they want us to be Russia. They want us to be one religion, one race, one gender preference, and one handful of people with all the money and power, and everybody else, well, you just work for us. Okay, anyway. And the rant. I was there for a week. It was a very eye-opening experience I do not wish to ever repeat again. So, for him to have pulled this off, the Miss Universe pageant in Moscow, Russia, one, he had to have express invitation, which had to have probably most likely come from billionaires, right? The Billionaire Boys Club. And also permission from the government leadership, which would have been Putin. Now, this may have been the event that gave him the opportunity to meet with Putin. And also, too, remember, this was the time that that PP tape apparently showed up. So that was pretty impressive, right? So if you can find something else, if you set up the chart for the 29 Leo rising, look for what comes to when Jupiter and the ascendant come together, if they do, and pick the year and then go back and the date, right? And go back in time and see if you can find anything significant that happened then. If you can't find it, the time is off. So what is the big bag of money and get out of jail free cards that he got for this Jupiter transit to the ascendant on the progressed return that occurred on November 9th, 2013? Well, I don't know for sure, but I'm kind of guessing the fact that in 2016 he confidently ran for president may have had something to do with that. Okay, so on November 8th, 2016, which is election night, he won the U.S. election. Now, what's important to note about his supposed victory is that he actually lost the popular vote that night by almost 3 million votes. The people, the majority of people in the United States did not want him as president. However, because of the stupid electoral college system that we've had set up since, I don't know, before the Civil War, which is the equivalent of, political gerrymandering in its own right, he only, by technicality, won by electoral college count. So his count was 304 to 227 based on electoral colleges and the way they're distributed. They need to get rid of the electoral college. We know that. But the people who benefit from it clearly aren't trying to give up anything. So that's how he won. He didn't win by popular vote. He won by technicality based on the electoral college rules. Now, here's what's important about this chart. So on election night, again, and this is something that's been confounding a lot of us when he was first elected, because with 29 Leo rising, we're not seeing anything connecting the chart that makes sense for something this big. You get elected into the office of president for a free nation. That's a pretty big deal and significantly life-changing. It should show up in the chart, but we're not seeing significant or major markers, right, of life changes or momentous life events on the night he was elected, if you use the 29 Leo rising. However, if we use the 1 degree 25 minute Virgo rising, well, that changes everything. Look at what happens. The first thing is that the sun, the progressed sun, moves to 0 degrees. Remember, anything that goes to 0 degrees, angles or planets, but especially the angles, and the sun is a personal planet, so definitely, this is critically important, changes the trajectory of your life. Everything changes dramatically because you're entering a whole new phase of existence when the sun goes to 0 degrees. That happened. His progressed sun went to 0 degrees on the night of the election. Well, remember those angles, ascendant and midheaven, are mathematically sensitive. You put the wrong input in, you're going to get the wrong answer out, and the calculations will not make sense. They won't prove themselves, right? Well, his progressed midheaven, look at that. That also went to 0 degrees. Major life chapter changes, right? Huge, significant, dramatic turn of life events. The two together absolutely implies that for anybody, regardless of what happens, whether you get elected to president or you have your first baby, because you didn't think you'd have kids at all, these things indicate a major change, a major life change, a whole new way of existence when it comes to identity and your social status, your relationship with society. And that's exactly what happened here. In his case, it happened to be because he won the presidency by electoral college, not popular vote. Just got to keep putting that out there. Okay, so this, my friends, is why the time is important. Now, some other things were happening at this time, and here's an interesting footnote here, right? The progressed moon moves into conjunction with his Saturn. So the progressed moon is at 22, 57, 23, Cancer. his Saturn, natal Saturn's at 23 Cancer. So that progressed moon moves into exact conjunction with his natal Saturn. Now, before we even look at what the Saturn rules in a chart, the thing to remember is that Moon-Saturn combination is a very sobering combination and can also be a little depressing. So you would almost wonder if he was maybe even not that thrilled with winning the nomination, or that this chapter of his life that he was entering into would not be as happy and fun and carefree as he thought it might be, which would make absolute sense because the moment he stepped into office, he was burdened with all manner of responsibility and obligation and restrictions and restraints that he did not know what to do with, or was comfortable operating. Remember, the man is a Sun-Uranus conjunction, and he's got the moon in Sagittarius. This guy, like, he's a great used car salesman, but when it comes to following the rules and doing what he's supposed to and meeting his obligations, rules apply to everybody but me. He likes his freedom. He likes being the callous, vulgar, the coarse vulgarian that tells the dirty jokes at the parties and offends the nuns. He loves being Mr. Shock, right? The Howard Stern, I have the Billionaire Boys Club, I suppose. Like, he gets off on being the bad boy, right? The shocking, comedian. People like that don't like being restrained. They don't like having to behave themselves. They don't like having to follow the conventions of society. So that would make sense that now suddenly he stepped into this role as president of the United States. That Moon Saturn also describes somebody who's having a very sobering experience and is coming into a phase of his life where he's really going to be feeling Saturn deeply and acutely and not in happy ways. Now, with him, that Saturn is very close to his natal Venus, right? So it pulls into Venus a little bit too. But we're feeling Saturn emphasis because the progress moon's on this side with this event. So, but with Venus being there also, because Venus and Saturn together as a combination usually indicates deep, deep wounds. There's a lot of deep social wounds that have a lot to do with acceptance and shame and worthiness, love, conditional versus unconditional. So all of this would have literally poked a finger, at the very sore spots he spends his entire life walking around protecting, right? So this could explain why this would not have been such a happy experience. I mean, it's great for bragging rights. Boy, he loves to brag, right? But in terms of actual day-to-day operations and experience, not so much. So, and this is if we use the 1 degree, 25-minute Virgo rising. You can try it with 29 Leo, see what you come up with. But this is what we're using, and this is justifying the time that we've got. So this 2016 election, which we think is, basically a gift from the Russians. Where are we? Yes. This 2016 election, which we think was a gift from the Russians back in 2013 as part of that Moscow, Russia Miss Universe pageant, and whatever benefits and bounty that came out of that connection, we think this is where that came from. So there's that. Okay. Now, with that said, so of course, anybody who's lived in the United States has been painfully, personally, acutely aware of all of the aggravation that went with this man being in office. Just constant freaking chaos with this guy. Jesus, like having an out-of-control teenager in a boys' reform school, like getting a hold of the fire alarms. Anyway, in 2017, right, again, we're looking at a progress chart, because I did not have my entire life to look over his charts, and honestly, the less I talk about this man, the happier I am. So December 22nd, 2017, this becomes important because progress Midheaven, remember, the angles are mathematical. Okay, so this is his progress chart for December 22nd, 2017. And the reason we're pulling this particular day up is because on that day in the progress chart, his progress Midheaven comes to an exact conjunction with his progressed Saturn. So this is important because this would indicate something very, very serious and maybe even depressing was happening at this time and specific to this day. Now, his progressed ascendant as of December 22nd was coming to a close, and we get into the next year, of course, and we're heading, again, a whole new chapter or life cycle when we get to the show of Scorpio. But for now, let's pay attention to this. So progress Midheaven comes to the progress Saturn exact on December 22nd, 2017, Well, what was going on at that time? Well, the first thing is that we know at that time his approval rating was at a historic low, literally the lowest any president's approval rating has been in history, sitting at 35%, right? This is as close to rock bottom as you're going to get without being dragged out of the office. What is it, kicking and screaming because people are trying to, do the French Revolution all over again. So what happened in his life on the 22nd? Well, that's the day he gave that huge, obscene, and completely unnecessary and counterproductive, we'll all agree on that, tax break for the wealthy. This occurred, he signed that tax break into law and into existence on the 22nd of December when Saturn was directly conjunct the Midheaven. So on the one hand, we could say that this was a very sobering, depressing moment because his approval rating was at historic lows. He was basically trying to buy acceptance and favors, and forgiveness. Or we could say that this represents one of the most massive mistakes he's ever made. And given his history of pretty big mistakes, I don't know that this is the most massive. So we're going to go with this was a very sobering time, and this was his attempt to work through Saturn stuff, which it clearly backfired, did not go well. By the way, in case you're forgetting, do you know how much? Do you remember how much you paid in income taxes in 2018? Think about that for a second, right? So figure what you paid in taxes, more or less, right? And think about this. After this tax break kicked in, the following tax season in 2018, right? Guess how much Amazon Corporation paid? How much Jeff Bezos paid in taxes that year for Amazon Corporation, which was making money hand over fist, by the way, because of the pandemic. You know how much they paid? $0. That's right, $0. Thanks to this tax break that Trump gave on December 22nd, 2017, when Progress Midheaven hit his Saturn and demanded that he take responsibility or accountability for his historic low approval rating. And this is what he decided to do. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so this is his solar return from his birthday in 2023 to his birthday again in 2024. And again, this is using the 125 birth time. So, and this is literally just a fast pass over the solar return. So I really do not want to spend a whole lot of time on this man. There's more important things in the world than him. So the first thing we notice is that on the solar return for his birthday to birthday, 2023-2024, we've got 29 degrees on the angles. This typically indicates that this is a major era or change in the life coming to an end. So this is a year of endings for him, this birthday year. Now, his 7th house comes to the 1st, which also suggests that there's a divorce coming. So the separation would have occurred about 2 months in advance. So this is going to be June 23, April, May, June. So around April of 2023, oh, hey now, which is right about now, there should be some separation or distance, lots of disguising, but separations or loss with partnerships happening in April of 2023. By the time we get to June, his birthday, and just shortly after, things are coming to a complete end. So divorce is definitely on the horizon for him. And also because this involves the 10th house of public reputation and social standing, your relationship with the community at large, the world. Also, this is a major ending here as well. So sometimes you'll see the 29th degree on the Midheaven if people are retiring, for example, because that is a major ending as far as your relationship with the outside world, right? Your public standing. And he may very well be retiring as well, but it's definitely, this is a year of endings for him and closure, things coming to an end. Now, notably, again, remember, we're using Virgo rising. Mercury becomes the chart ruler. So in August, and in the last chart work we did, we saw the same thing. In August, we've got Mercury at 8 Cancer, squaring, is that right? Moon, Jupiter, and, no, that's not right. That's a sextile. Shit. this is his progress chart for July 6, 2020. This is literally right around the corner. And the reason we're using this progress chart is, and this date, is because the moon and Jupiter, well, the moon will be at 23, Jupiter will already be at 25, will come down and hit his natal Venus and Saturn at that time. Set this over here. So the progressed moon and Jupiter with this chart will come down and hit his very unfortunate, misfortunate Venus-Saturn conjunction in his natal chart in his 11th house. So the 11th house has a lot to do with our group affiliations, as well as the community at large and random people that we haven't met yet, associates versus close friends. So with Moon and Jupiter coming down, and typically the Moon and Jupiter are benefics or beneficial planets, but in this particular case, it's really shining a sensitive spotlight on his natal Venus-Saturn, which suggests that he may fall out of public favor, okay, because of this particular combination. He may fall out of public favor in very, very big, devastating, long-lasting ways. Now, honestly, there's really no upside to this. With a Moon-Jupiter progression squaring, Jesus, what am I saying? Conjunction, squaring. This is in Libra, this is in Cancer, this is a square. There is no upside to this. So with the Moon-Jupiter progressed, squaring his natal Venus-Saturn in Cancer, one of the things we can absolutely expect here is a complete loss of support, because that Moon-Jupiter comes out of his second, third house, 25, right there on the second and third house cusp. So he may very well have a huge fall from favor that occurs as early as July 6, 2023. Now this could move into August, so we're looking at July, August, so let's keep an eye on that. And again, this should run on time. There's nothing beneficial about this Moon-Jupiter square Venus-Saturn across the charts. And because it involves his natal second, third house cusps down here, financial losses, as well as opinions of the people around you, your local community, as well as the community at large. All of these things are getting affected. So he's going to take a hammering in a big way, something super significant, long-lasting, and detrimental in big capital D-E-T-R-I-M-E-N-T-A-L, capital letters, detrimental, should be occurring in July and August. This is not going to be a happy time. Okay, so this is his personal horoscope from his birthday, June 14, 2023, to his birthday, June 2024. Okay, so, and this is just a quick overview and not spending a lot of time on his prediction chart because I literally have bigger fish to fry than what's going on in his life. But for now, he's relative, or relevant, I should say. So the first thing we notice on the solar return for this year, this birthday year coming up, this is a year of endings. We've got the 29th degree on both ascendant and midheaven. This is a year of endings and closure for him. The ride has come to an end this year between 23 and 24. Now, notably, his 7th house at the 29th degree comes to the ascendant. This indicates that there's a possibility of a divorce happening after his birthday in June 2023. With Neptune sitting here so close to the ascendant also, and a couple degrees behind the ascendant, I would have expected a couple months ahead of his birthday, which would make it April now, that some distance or disillusionment and certainly some separation, some loss would have already started occurring, and it won't be official until June or July, possibly August, but definitely just after his birthday. Now, the other thing that's important or notable here, if you look at a solar return, is he has a Moon-Jupiter conjunction in the solar return in the first house. So typically we would think this is a very good thing because Jupiter is a benefic. It's a good planet, right? Lots of blessings and stuff like that. But don't forget also, Jupiter rules liberation. So Jupiter will liberate you from things. Sometimes there are things you didn't want to be liberated from, like your material possessions, because Jupiter is, after all, a spiritual planet and philosophical. And if you don't have money, you're going to be very philosophical. So in the solar return, the Moon-Jupiter conjunction is also squaring this Venus right here in that 5th house. So there's going to be some separation from the children. It also applies to a square with Mars. This moon Jupiter, when it gets down here and hits Mars, which is going to be in about 9 months, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March. This will be March of 24. When that moon Jupiter comes down here and squares that Mars, because remember, Mars rules his 9th house in his natal chart. Okay, when it comes down here and squares Mars, this is when we can expect the other shoe to drop in terms of legal issues. So this could also suggest possible long distance travel and or being forced into exile, right? Because Jupiter and Mars. So that's December of March of 2024. We're looking at for that to occur. More immediately speaking, we've got his natal Mercury is at 8 Cancer. Now in August, his solar return ascendant is going to come down and square his natal Mercury. So what that means, set this up. Okay, so his natal ascendant is going to move into Aries. So when it gets to about 8 Aries, right, in his natal chart, it's going to square his Mercury in the 11th. So again, 8th and 11th, we're looking at issues that have to do with money, right, and finances and groups that we belong to and belong in. So with the 8th and the 11th, and this is not an easy aspect, there could be problems coming down the pike come August where his group affiliations are concerned. And don't forget, when you have that kind of money, when you're in the Billionaire Boys Club or whatever you call it, right, the more money you have and the higher up the social status tiers you go, the smaller and smaller and smaller your social circles become, right? Literally to the point that they're almost incestuous because there are so few people in your group, as it were, or worthy of being in your group. So with this Mercury, right, progressed Mercury, progressed ascendant moving down and squaring that Mercury from that 8th to 11th house, he may find himself being excommunicated or removed or losing some group affiliations that he belongs to, which for him could be devastating because remember, he's got a very heavily tenanted 11th house, right? So 10th and 11th, things that are extremely important to him and vital in his life have a lot to do with having status, being important, being seen and heard, the front stage center man, and also his group affiliations belonging to the right groups, Venus, Saturn in 11th. So there's that. Now, so really quickly, other things with this prediction chart for him moving for his personal year. In October of 2023, we have Pluto moving down, or rather, Pluto by transit will station direct at 2754 Capricorn. That means that Pluto will be stationing on top of, or right here in his 11th house. So again, being kicked out of the club is going to be a big concern. Also, major upheavals in terms of who we're affiliated or associated with. Now, at the same time in October, because October is a very important month because not only do we have the Pluto station happening that month, we also have a 22 Libra eclipse that occurs on the 14th and activated on October 1st. So the month of October is extremely active and dynamic for him. This 22 Libra eclipse is extremely important because in his natal chart, right? Look, right here. There's that Venus and Saturn at 23 and 25 Cancer. So this eclipse at 22 Libra is going to square his natal Venus and Saturn. This eclipse coming up in October will be coming out of no less than his second, again, that second, third house cusp. So things that have to do with his finances, his value systems, what he's worth and what he's worth to other people, as well as his immediate group of friends and associates, his local neighborhoods, which for him would be Mar-a-Lago. All of these things are going to come in direct conflict and hurt him where it hurts the most when it squares this Venus-Saturn. So we're looking at a Pluto station occurring in his natal chart down here in his 5th house, things that have deep meaning and love for him, things that he loves deeply, which may or may not be his children. And it's going to be opposing this Venus-Saturn at the same time that the eclipse is squaring it. So we've got a big T-square with the eclipse as the leg in October. So in October, we can expect some major comeuppance, and not in a happy way, to come out. Now, some things, and mind you, it's very important you guys understand that I do not do medical astrology. I don't approve of it. If you have a medical condition or medical concerns, go see a trained, educated, licensed professional. Do not rely on soothsayers, tarot card readers, you know, or your Uncle Fred being channeled by, you know, some woman named Lydia who's pulling the letter J, and a smoker. Go to the doctor. They know best. But with that said, there is the possibility of looking at his chart that come August and again in November, I think, if I'm reading this correctly, there's a possibility of an infection or cardiac problems coming down the pike for him very, very shortly. So that's going to be this summer in August and then around November. Now remember, these times can be a little bit off, so that November could also read out as October, or maybe the stress of October is leading to the health issues in November. Either way, October, November are big critical health months for him. So possible systemic infections or cardiac infections, certainly the real possibility of some cardiac problems, which also too, given his physical condition and his age, is not, and the stress level he's under right now, it's not impossible. So that's what we're seeing moving forward. The other thing I just wanted to show here is we have Pluto, his natal Pluto, right? Oops. His natal Pluto is here at 10 Leo. Venus and Mars in the solar return are sandwiching his natal Pluto, okay, as they take this square from Moon Jupiter. So the Moon Jupiter by solar return squaring or challenging that Venus Mars is involving his natal Pluto. Now his natal Pluto is here. Oh, sorry. Where am I? His natal Pluto is here in his 12th house. And again, this is a deeply, deeply karmic house. And we saw this Pluto come up before with one of the major turning point years for him. With the Moon Jupiter squaring Venus Mars, involving that Pluto, because that Moon Jupiter is going to be coming out of here, right? From the 8th to the 12th. This is a lot of deep spiritual penance that has to be paid. So in a personal chart, what you would do is you would tell the person who has this aspect, not that they're going to die or anything like that, or they're going to go broke. What you will say is that this is a very important time for them to get their spiritual values right, and to make penance for any wrongs that they have committed and try to take a new path and find a new way through life, because that's what's being demanded at this time. Failure to course correct the spiritual trajectory that you are on will result in some devastating penalties, right? Because the 12th house is involved. And these are, if you believe in karma, these are multiple lifetime things that you will be here over and over and over again for pretty much eternity trying to sort out. So these are real important times. So again, watch August and October, November for health issues. October 2023 is going to be a big whopper of a month. So let's see what happens in there. And again, also here, like we kick the month off for the birthday, June, July, August, right? July, August. And there is a divorce looming on this chart. And also too, the 29 degrees on the angles, this is a year of endings. So this will be major endings and losses on multiple levels. This is a really important time for him to get his heart and his spirit correct. But, you know, listen, we all walk the walk we need to walk. So let go or be dragged. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and that it has something of value to you in here somewhere. If you have questions or comments or input, you're more than welcome to put it down in the comment section. Now, understand, I'm not here for a debate. I don't care that somebody thinks he's 29 Leo rising because the hair, the ego, the temper, whatever. I'm not here to have that discussion. So if you'd like to make a case that he's actually 29 Leo rising, please put it in a video and submit it. because I don't read like the whole laundry list of aspects either. It's just, oh my God, right? Wall of words. I just want to finish with a couple of reminders that I think are very important and always good to remember. So, one of the things that makes astrology so amazing and wonderful is it gives us the opportunity to hopefully accurately predict the future. I mean, that's what it's all about, right? Predicting the future. So the thing about it is, when we talk about predicting the future, the other thing to remember is, like, what value does that actually have? I mean, if you knew the tsunami was going to come and swallow up most of Thailand as it did not so long ago, right? What is that going to do for you? Like, are you going to go and evacuate the entire, like, peninsula, of Thailand? Well, no, and, if you knew that a plane was going to go down at, 4 p.m. on, blah, 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 like, are you personally able to go and make sure that plane doesn't take off? Even if we can predict things like this, right? The thing about it is there's a certain amount of fate involved in many of the events in our lives. Astrology is a blueprint, a topographical terrain map of, the architecture of our life or events, which means that there are certain things that are destined, fated, preordained to happen, at certain junctures along this timeline. So circumstances and events that are fated, preordained, or destined to happen are going to happen. There's no getting around it, because those things are necessary as part of a bigger evolutionary exercise. Ultimately, astrology is a map of evolution. And the purpose of this, when you can read these charts or, read the stars above, it's very much about navigating these timelines so that you are able to better understand the evolutionary demands on you so that you can become a bigger, better, more improved version of yourself. Everything is about growth and improvement. So if we know that in this particular year of our life, we've got major Plutonian activity, like this is not going to be easy, and it's going to literally drive us to our knees and force us to reassess everything we thought was important and valuable, to the point where we feel like we've got nothing to work with. Nothing. Everything's been ripped away, and there's nothing fair about it. That's the fate part in astrology. Those are the circumstances and events that you're not going to get away from, you're not going to get around, and even being able to predict them and know in advance that this type of thing is going to happen, nothing you can do to stop it. Nothing you can do to stop it. The other side of astrology is that it's also about free will and context. So the free will part is the part where these things happen, right? We knew this was coming. We knew some type of event like this that was going to create this type of evolutionary demand on us was going to happen. And our free will is how we choose to respond to these situations and circumstances. Our choices about how to respond and who we're going to be as a result of this, that's the free will part, and that's the important part. The astrology can't give you that, and the astrology, because of free will, the astrology cannot predict your character. Character will not show up in an astrology chart because your character is built on the choices that you make in response to the fated, preordained, or destined circumstances and situations and people that come into your life. The choices you make about how to respond to that and who you're going to be as a result of that, that's your free will, and that is how you determine and develop your character. Astrology can't tell you which one you're going to do. So when you're dealing with people, and the other thing I want you to remember is that when you're dealing with people, everyone at any point, anywhere in their life is making what they believe to be the best possible choices with the circumstances and opportunities that they have in front of them. Everyone's making the best choices they know how to make. So it's not our job or our position to judge other people for those choices, because those choices are based on the context of their lives, not yours, theirs. And in the context of that life, if their circumstances and opportunities or lack of them are very, very specific and narrow, they don't really have a lot of better options and choices to make. They will make the best choice with what's available in front of them. We have to be realistic if we're going to be astrologers, or we're not of any help to anybody. So I'll give you an example, right? Right now there's a bunch of really good movies about drug kingpins in New York back in the 60s and 70s. You know, these are in particular exceptional people. So the thing about it is, in the context of that time period, think about this for a minute. If you were a black man living in someplace like Harlem, right, in the 60s or 70s, on the heels of Vietnam, oh my God, what circumstances and opportunities realistically were available to you or not available to you? In those environments and those circumstances, people in that group, right, had to deal with what was available to them and try to make the best possible choices from that. And if we take those drug kingpins from those environments at that time with the limited circumstances and opportunities that were in front of them, who were able to literally make genius moves to become these exceptional characters we're making movies about now, imagine how their choices might have been different had they been in a position where they had different circumstances and different opportunities. How could they have changed the world in a different way if they had a different playing field to work with? Remember, we can't control the circumstances in our life, and we can't control the opportunities that come and don't come. We can navigate around and towards these things, but ultimately, you know, we work with what's in front of us and what's given to us, you know, through karma, fate, evolutionary design, you name it. So when you look at a chart, avoid the very easy and tempting tendency to jump to conclusions and or judge people for choices that they have made up until that point that you don't necessarily approve of or agree with. You do not know the context of their life, and they've made those decisions in the context of their life. Whether it's abortion, giving children up for adoption, becoming drug kingpins, you know, becoming professional assassins, becoming supermodels, you know, marrying for money, you know. All of these things are done in the context of that person's individual life and what they consider important and valuable to them. Not all of them are ideal choices, and they may very well have had different, better choices available. But we don't know that, so it's not really our job to judge. So I want you guys to keep this in mind when you do your charts, and when somebody's doing your chart for you. Okay, you are much more complicated than a piece of paper and a couple of like planets in a wheel. Okay, the context of your life, and you, as well as anybody else, is always making the best possible choices you can, given the circumstances and opportunities and understanding of your life that you see in front of you. If you're not sure what those best choices are, this is why we have other people in our lives to give us perspective. So that's it. I'm not going to ramble on too much on and on and on, but I know somebody out there needs to hear that. So you are awesome, and you're always in a position where you can become even more awesome, right? And remember, as hard as your life gets, right, it is the struggle that makes you stronger, and being stronger is what makes you beautiful. Strong hearts, strong minds, strong bodies, these are the beautiful things. And you cannot get strong without struggling. Ask anybody who's ever lifted weights. So when things are really, really bad and you're literally at wit's end, and there's a lot of us who've been here for a while, if the only thing you can do is go from one day to the next, then you go from one day to the next and focus on doing good things. Just do good things. If that's the only thing you can do successfully today, because nothing else will allow you to do anything else, then do good things. All right. Talk to you later.